I'll start by introducing myself. My name is Boise Thomas. I hail from New York. I grew up in New York, spent my first 20 years here in the great Empire State. Last 20 years I've been in California, living in Venice Beach, studying through a myriad of different healing arts, yoga, meditation, tantra. Ooh, that always gets an eye raise. White tantra mostly, no, everything clothed, basically. White tantra is a light form of eye gazing. If you've ever rubbed someone's feet or fed them a strawberry, that's the white tantra brand. The red tantra is more when you're exchanging bodily fluids and getting fleshy with each other, the fleshy, meshy bits. So what I'm here to talk to you about today is very exciting because it's something that my colleagues and I, with a company called Internet, INNERNET, we're noticing that there's a high rate of burnout happening in our community with blockchain, specifically because the first thing that's happening, something is happening that's really the first time that this has ever happened in modern history. Normally in the past, you take, say, for example, the Industrial Revolution, there was a push to industrialize. So we were forging steel, we were building railways to move large quantities of goods and services. Of course, there was slavery. The Chinese, the Japanese, the Mexican Americans were being taken advantage of, and there was, that kind of low-level, inhumane activity happening. But essentially, all those conditions existed because there was a push to get something done in a hurry. So how many of you feel like you're working on something that needs to get done in a hurry? Yeah, we're being pushed. And we all signed up for this. Nobody's here against their will, are they? If they are, tell me. I'll call your mother and we'll get it handled. Anybody? Good. We're all here. It's free will. We're all here by choice. And we're here because we believe in a decentralized future. If you believe in a decentralized future, raise your hand. Yeah, that's the future. That's what we see as missing. We see that to be an aspect of the problem-solution mass that is Web 3.0. So what I wanted to speak to you about is this push that we're experiencing. And the push is self-realized. Like we signed up for this. We said, I want to be part of the new human race. And it is a race. We're running. We got a runway. If you talk to Joe Lubin, founder of Consensus, he'll tell you we have a runway of 2.5 to 4 years is the runway that he believes until the blockchain takes hold, smart contracts, Uport, MetaMask, all these things become commonplace. We're spending and exchanging money through crypto, and we're also able to hide our private data, but also work inside of the blockchain space and exchanging our information privately. So he believes that's a 2 to 4 year runway for that. So that's the push. And if you listen to Joe, because I've worked with Consensus as a consultant, and he always says, get it done right. But if you can work faster, that's great. So he's not ever telling us work faster, hurry up. He's saying get it done right. And if you can move faster, that's great. So we all agree that we've signed up for this. And we all agree that we're pushing ourselves. But in the first time in human history, there's also a pull. There's a pull. There's like I'm having a hard time thinking of another way to phrase it, but there's like a black hole somewhere in space that's actually sucking us towards this decentralized future. And everybody knows it's necessary. Everybody knows it's coming. Everybody knows somebody will put their flag in the moon and say, we were the first ones here. And that's part of that push. Everybody's trying to be first to market. But on the arrival of it, there's also a pull. There's something that's attracting it to us all. There's this magnetic kind of, think of like the tractor beam, where we're all kind of being sucked into it, right? Sometimes don't you feel like you're being sucked into working in the blockchain space? So for the first time in human history, after the Industrial Revolution, but pre-decentralized future, we're experiencing pushing ourselves and at the same time being pulled by a force outside of us that we all agree exists, although we're unable to put our finger on it. We can't really locate this space that's pulling us, but we know it's out there. We know the decentralized future is going to happen, and we're all willingly signing up to play a significant and integral role in the decentralized future becoming a reality. So in this time of a push-pull, if you've ever had two little kids pulling one hand, I want to go play on the swings. I want to go on the slide. It's frustrating because you want to appease both of the children. You love the slide and you love the swings. But you're in the middle and you can only go in one direction. And what we're noticing as the people of Internet and the people that are offering some of the programs that are working specifically in this kind of esoterically phrased genre called self-care is that what's happening to human beings, whether you've got the best biohack in the world or whether your sleep game is so tight that people follow you around from 10 o'clock at night till 8 in the morning, you may have some things sussed or figured out for yourself. But what we're seeing is the level of burnout in the space called I'm pushing myself to be part of this decentralized future because something's also pulling me, that we're experiencing a very high rate of burnout. And there's something also I'm noticing, being a little bit older than the set of people that are really at work in this. I don't need to say how old I am, but I am a svelte 145 pounds. And yes, I do yoga every day. So I'll give you my weight, but we'll keep my date out of it. So the point being, I've seen enough of Hollywood over the last 20 years living out there, and I saw enough of New York living here the first 25 years of my life. And I've never seen people get so tired so fast. And you got to know that I come from Hollywood. I watch people work 16, 18-hour days, drive home on the freeway for 20 minutes, half asleep, go to bed, wake up 6 hours later, and go back and do the same thing months at a time. And what I'm witnessing in the space of this technology sector, specifically around the blockchain, is a different level of exhaustion that's almost become like this weird agreement where people are accepting each other being exhausted. Here, take this, or here, drink that, or microdose, or do this, or do that. Or hey, you should sleep over on that cushion in the corner, and we'll wake you up when the Zoom call starts in 20 minutes. And what I get moved by is it's almost okay now to be tired. It's almost okay to look a little haggard. It's almost a badge we wear. Like, look, I'm giving this everything I've got. And we signed up for this. So nobody's doing this against their will. I want to be clear about that. There are no victims in this room. But the condition of life has become such that we're all really overworked for the decentralized future. Anybody digging what I'm dishing here? Just a little bit of hands? Okay, good. It's mostly us over here. The rest of you, show us how to sleep. What are you eating? How do you look so good? So essentially, one of the kind of gaps that we've seen, and then we're going to open it up, do some Q&A, because I'm more interested in education than I am about pitching something or getting you on board with a program or having you admit that you're tired or that your liver's weak and why you have dark circles under your eyes, or, you know, there's all kinds of indicators that we can look at your face as healers and we know exactly what's going on. It doesn't mean you're not wearing clothes, but it means you are exposed, you're naked, you're vulnerable. We can see what's going on. And if you look at enough faces of brilliant, amazing, talented, you know, smart, gifted, skilled human beings that are out there implementing these new things. I don't understand what you do with these zeros and ones, but I'm blown away at what you're doing with these zeros and ones. It's fantastic. And I can't wait to tap my phone and do everything. You know, it's a little scary, but we'll get there, you know. So before we get into some Q&A, there's a program that we're launching this week. That's next week, next Thursday, in 5 days. And it's called the Yes Program. It's called the Yes Program because we couldn't figure out what to call it. But as a former actor and somebody who's always been in the entertainment space, there's a rule of improv. Does anybody know the number one rule of improv? Who are my improv people? You always say yes, but there's an actual name for it. You know what it's called? Yes and. Yes. So you always say yes, and you say yes and. So this is a great dating tip for anybody dating out there. If somebody says, would you like to have dinner? And you're not attracted to them, you say yes, and can we make it lunch? And you make sure you're in public, where if you get up and walk away, it doesn't cause a scene, or they don't get butthurt because they're like, oh, well, it's 9:30 and we've had a couple glasses of wine and I'm having a really good time. No, you're drunk and you're attracted to me. That's not a good time for me, right? So we have a tendency to say yes to things, but we also have a tendency to say no to things that we want to resist because we don't feel 100%. So yes and is this really great improv trick that if you put it in your life, you'll find that your life will start to flow. Anybody know Shonda Rhimes? Anybody familiar with her? Yeah. So for those of you that don't, Shonda Rhimes is a brilliant human being who's a masterful storyteller and a kick-ass businesswoman. And she's got some of the top shows on TV right now, and everybody in Hollywood wants to work with her. And she wrote this book called The Year of Yes. Jim Carrey did a movie like 10 years ago called The Yes Man. And, you know, it's it's not rocket science to say yes to something. Yes has you increase the opportunities in your life. No stops the flow in your life. So if you be a yes to people, a lot of things are going to happen. But if you're working in the blockchain space and you're currently part of like 4 spokes, and you've got a boyfriend and a dog, and you say yes to everything, your life's not going to work. You're going to be exhausted, your liver's going to shut down, and you're going to end up being in some kind of weird medical pharmaceutical protocol at 29 years old and be like, how did I get here? You know? Cue David Byrne, okay? Talking Heads. Once in a lifetime. Look it up. Okay, so essentially what we're offering the YES program for is an opportunity for you to say yes to your self-care, yes to creating a system in which you can take care for yourself. And a lot of the things we're offering aren't new. But some of the things you'll see are happening are things like your parents did. How many of you, your parents were wide awake when you woke up in the morning? Like they've been up for hours, right? Do you know why your parents wake up hours before you do? Because you're still asleep. Because you're not around. That's their time. So one of the things that's being forfeited in the age of technology and in the creation of the blockchain is we're not taking time for ourselves. I'm watching our clock here. So we're not taking time for ourselves. 11 minutes we've got for Dr. Chopra to arrive. So with the last minute here, and then we'll do 10 minutes of Q&A around your self-care, is people are waking up in the morning, and how many of you, be honest, one of the first things you do before you pee is check your phone. Yeah, and if you're not raising your hand, you're lying. You're lying. You're lying to yourself. And if you don't do that, congratulations. But I'm going to assert that most of us don't raise our hand because we're ashamed. Or we think like, that's a horrible answer. I'm going to put my hand down here and just let these people admit it, right? So checking your phone first thing in the morning is immediately looking outside of yourself for something that you're not giving yourself. Even if it's the time. If you don't have an alarm clock and you wake up every morning at the same time, I have questions for you. Because sometimes if I'm in my routine, I'll wake up before my alarm clock, but only if I'm in my routine. Most of the time I'm traveling in the different time zones and I'm exhausted. And the other day I overslept and I didn't set 2 alarms. I only set 1 and I failed. So, even those people that, we teach what we most need to learn. That's all I need to say about that. So yes and is an opportunity to say yes to things. And I've done that before, but I don't wake up before my alarm goes off. Or I never thought about why my parents wake up an hour earlier. Oh, it's because they take that hour for themselves, for their self-care. Okay? So let's open up some questions or some comments or, as a meditator, a yogi, somebody who's worked in Reiki, nutrition, Tantra. I've had a lot of different certifications, but how I'd like to operate the Q&A is maybe have people who are willing to do that say something you're dealing with, something you're bumping up against. Some of you have been nodding throughout this first 10 minutes or so, and I'd love to hear what are you dealing with and how can we support you right now? Not in the program we're offering, but right now, how can we start to create some self-care solutions for you? So anybody want to work on something or cop to something or get some help? Or you could even start it with, I have a friend, and my friend is having a hard time sleeping. And if they were here, they'd want to ask you this question. So anybody? Yeah, great.
I have a friend. Oh, okay.
You have a friend?
Well, actually, it's mostly me. So whenever my biggest issue, I'm going to pour my heart out, guys. My biggest issue with work is when something bad happens or seemingly bad, it just sits there in your consciousness, and instead of what someone like you would say, observe it, don't judge it, and let it pass, but it sits there and it affects you physiologically, it affects you mentally. Like, what are some good practices to create a new pathway of thinking with that?
Awesome question. What was your name? Megan. Thanks, Megan. Thank you very much for asking that question. So the immediate thing that comes to mind for me is journaling. Okay? Journaling is something we did when we were teenage girls. Look, I'm a teenage girl. I'm more woman than half the women in here, okay? I manicure. I do all that stuff. Not to diminish your femininity, but we come from a man and a woman. And I think if you embrace both, then you adopt the best of both, okay? So I love sports, and I love a good manicure, and occasionally a good ass wax. But that's between you and me. Okay, so how do you handle that? Journaling is not just for 14-year-old girls that are in love with Billy who sits 2 rows away in homeschool, right? So journaling is a way to actually give yourself an opportunity to empty out your mind, your heart, your consciousness. Einstein, one of my favorite human beings of all time, is very famously and often quoted as saying, the brain is not for storage. The brain is for problem solving. Prior to modern computing, CPUs, hard drives, cloud technology, Einstein was very clear there was a thing called bandwidth. He didn't call it bandwidth, but he said the degree to which you can computate as a human computer and figure out problems is directly correlate to the amount of free bandwidth you have in your brain. So one of the things that happens is we're at work or we're in an interpersonal relationship or even a relationship with ourselves. Like we look in the mirror and I don't like the way my hair is, or I don't like that I bought these expensive earrings, or I don't like how I talk to myself. Then we want to journal that out, and we're actually emptying out our consciousness so that we can get it out of our system. Okay, I'm a big fan of therapy. I've only done it a couple times, total of maybe spent like 2 to 3 years in a chair. I call it talkie time because it has a little less of a negative connotation. So I call it talkie time. Oh, I got Tuesday talkie time. I'm going to go talk to a professional who I'm paying, money to listen to me. And I don't like telling my problems to my friends because then they either don't want to be your friends or then they want to tell you your problems. And I'm not telling them my problems so I can listen to their problems. I'm telling them my problems so I don't have to listen to my own problems anymore. So finding a professional to talk to is a great way to also empty out your mind and deal with those things. If they're patterns, if they're repetitive, okay, because that's habitual in nature. And by the way, there's a bunch of research coming out right now that human beings all have this addictive personality gene. It's not something that's unique. We all get addicted to something. So if you're addicted to sex and sexuality, or you're addicted to substance, or you're addicted to gambling, or you're addicted to riding your bicycle across Brooklyn, there's something that your physical body will get off on. The endorphins will fire, and you'll want more of that, okay? It's just science is coming out, and they're starting to see it's not a matter of if you get addicted to something. It's becoming a question of what are you addicted to, and then how can you manage that and be responsible for it? So some of us get addicted to negative self-talk. And we don't even know we're doing it until all of a sudden we look in the mirror and we don't like the person that's looking back at us because we resent ourselves for tolerating and not being more confident like that person or not being more happy like that person. People hate me most of the time because I'm always happy. They're like, why are you so happy all the time? And you want to know why? You guys want to know why I'm so happy? It's not because I escaped from New York for 20 years, by the way. You bitter, cynical bastards, right? It's changing. You're changing it. You're happier than the New Yorkers I left 20 years ago. So here's why I'm happy when I wake up every day. And it's another answer to your question, a subset. Is there are 8 billion people on the planet. And you can't fight me on that. I'm a populist. I had a vasectomy 20 years ago. There's way too many people on the planet. I can barely stand being around you all, okay? There's just too many of us. There's too many people, right? There's too many people. If there were less people, we could probably find a better flat for like $1,100 instead of $2,400. You know what I'm saying? I know you do. So I wake up every morning. And I immediately am present to there's 8 billion people on the planet. And while I was sleeping, 100,000 of them, or 1 out of every 80,000, died in their sleep. And I wasn't one of them. So I wake up every day with the human being lottery. I won the ticket. I'm still here. And that I get present to every day when I wake up, that I'm still alive and I have another day to course correct my life or tweak my program or make my operation system better by celebrating the things that make me most happy. So 1 out of every 80,000 people dies in their sleep. And when I wake up, I don't let my feet hit the floor until I smile. I go, I'm awake, I'm alive. And then I do it. And I don't fake it. So sometimes if your bladder's full and you need to empty it, you really got to let go of that negative shit in your head. Otherwise, you're going to soil yourself. And I've maybe had a little trickle once or twice because I wasn't ready to let go of that thought, So journaling is a great way. Creating contextual games, gamifying your mind, and recognizing your ego, recognizing your negative self-talk, and saying, okay, I get it. You think I'm disgusting, and thank you for sharing. And if the voice in your head was your friend, you would never call it back. But it doesn't work that way. It's constantly going. It never shuts up. So just celebrate yourself. Go look in the mirror. Tell yourself you have great eyes. What are you doing later? Hey, you want to go back to bed? It's all kinds of things like that, Never say no to some me is what I always like to say. So essentially, getting present, having an empowering context, remembering that you're still here, you still have a life. Today's a new day. I always, I don't know if you know who Xavier Rudd is, but I have a huge crush on this guy, Xavier Rudd. He's like a hippie singer. He wears these overalls. He's super hunky and handsome, and he has these long dreadlocks, and he plays harmonica and didgeridoo and guitar, and he's from Australia. And I'm not into men or Australians, but man, I would love to cuddle this guy up, man. I'd love to get a snuggle in with Xavier Rudd. Xavier Rudd's got this song called Follow the Sun. I played it yesterday when I taught a yoga class in the ZenZone before the rain moved us inside. And the song Follow the Sun, it just makes me feel really happy to be alive, you know? And in the chorus it says, tomorrow's a new day for everyone. And I just get present to, well, so's today. Today could be new right now. So that's one of the things I do. And journaling helps me empty out my brain and remembering that we're still here and we still have a life and we don't have to empower those negative thoughts. So that's another thing we do. One thing about this Face ID thing is just you got to be, no, I don't want to use my Visa to pay for anything. We're just talking. Okay, I got a couple minutes. Who else? Thank you very much. Did that contribute something positive to you relating to the negative shit between your ears? Great. Thank you for speaking up, being vulnerable, and being open. Yeah, great. Morgan?
So I'm totally on board with the idea of it's really much easier to kind of reprogram yourself mentally when you have alone time and take time to yourself. One thing that's really hard, at least for me right now, is if you, so living with a significant other in a very small area where you physically cannot get any space for yourself and makes it very difficult mentally too, and it lends you to fall into these just bad habits in general of like, oh, we come home, just do whatever, go to sleep. Kind of like you were saying, it's just really hard to get out of that and get alone time when you can't get alone time. Is there kind of, I don't know, if you've run into any solutions, more or less?
I've been living alone for 7 years. I have a cat, and even my cat gets on my nerves because it's just like, what do you want to cuddle? I'm still sleeping. Come on, get out of my face, right? And cat breath, even kitty cat breath, you know? So what I would say is it's the reverse of date night. So you always have a date night. I was married for 11 years. My wife and I are still close. We have godkids together. Very emotionally difficult separation because we were going to be together forever. But in all transparency, we worked through it. And we took the same amount of time creating our wedding, 6 months, that we did creating our divorce. We had a call every week for an hour. We cried. We yelled at each other. We went over our resentments, our regrets, how much we hated each other, how much we loved each other, what we were going to miss, all the times we should have had sex, all that stuff. And when we were done, we were like, okay, I think we can get divorced now. So it took a lot to let go of this idea that I was going to be married forever. And it took a lot to man up to the 25 people that came to our destination wedding on Hawaii and admit to them, like, you were there to hold that space for me. And now it's ending, and I never gave you a chance to speak up or contribute or help me. So I acknowledge you for speaking up and speaking out and saying, look, I've got this significant person in my life that we share a small space, and I'm committed to making it work. So we had date night every Friday night, and that date night was unfuckable with. You did not reschedule date night. It started at 6 o'clock, and if you started at 6:05, it ended at 12:05, okay? So date night was unfuckable with, okay? So last thought on that, and we'll just go until we're going to be told to step down. We got 2 minutes, great. So create a night that you're not together, and then alternate every other week that you get the house to yourself. And who cares where they go? Go to the library. Go to a club and watch a game, or go for a walk in the park, or just go somewhere. But where they go doesn't matter, as long as you're being faithful, as long as you're keeping your promise to be with each other, if that's the promise you have. But create a date night on Friday nights, and then create every other week, create a date where you get the house to yourself. And then at least over the next 13 days, you have that to look forward to, that you have the house to yourself. And every 6 days, you have to look forward to that you get to go out by yourself. Does that sound like a good idea, Morgan? Great. And then try it out for a couple months, and if it doesn't work, then switch it up. Or start seeing other people. Or call a spade and say, you know what? The apartment's either too small, or either I'm too big for this relationship. Okay, good. Got it. Yeah, good. All right. Well, thank you, Morgan, and thank you, Megan. Morgan and Megan, everybody, let's give them a little click or a snap or a high five. Thank you both for exemplifying vulnerability, trust, public authenticity, all the things that we're all trying to push for a decentralized future. But when it comes to our own personal shit, yeah, no thank you. I'd rather just let my spoke win. You don't need to know the personal details of my life. My partner and I, Yulila in the back, my business partner, she's a doctor of consciousness like Dr. Chopra, who's arriving. She's originally from Vancouver, British Columbia, Canada. And she started a company several years back when she was meditating, and she heard a very clear message to start bringing spirituality back to technology. That the soul of technology was becoming a hungry ghost, just like the one that makes you want to buy that Beamer or that Audi. There's nothing particularly enlivening about that $80,000 car. But the hungry ghost in your humanity, that piece of your ego that needs that to self-validate because you're so critical, is also existing in technology. And it's right now being amplified with the blockchain space. So we're all becoming hungry technological ghosts. We want more crypto. We want more success. We want more people to download our app. So we're offering this program. It's called the YES program, Self-Care for Leaders in Tech. And it's seeking a healthier live-work-play balance, but more essentially, it's just seeking a healthier relationship with the way that you take care of yourself. And even though I've done stand-up comedy and I'm an actor and done a bunch of improv classes, and I've always loved educating, I've trained and developed over 15,000 human beings in a myriad of different programs, from all the esoteric stuff I mentioned to proper, globally recognized transformational seminars that are accredited, so you actually get ongoing credits in education. So even though I'm entertaining, I think entertainment and education nowadays are more important than ever. I learned so much from people on YouTube that make me laugh, and all my news comes from, those people that make fun of how messed up the world is. So if you're interested or you'd like more information, you can just leave after Dr. Chopra speaks, and you go out to the right, and the ZenZone's right there. We'll be at the table. We have some flyers, or I can text you some more information. And if you know right now you'd like more information, just text 33222 and write in the word power. So text the word power to 33222, and we're happy to exchange more information. I'm really grateful that Dr. Chopra was late, so I got a chance to be with the 25 of you today, and I hope it was what my promise was, that the information we covered contributed to you and enhanced your life. And if it did so, you can clap, and I love you. Thank you. Thanks, everybody.